Hello everybody, and welcome to Theology 101. In a previous video, we compared the views of young Earth and old Earth creationism. Today we are going to take a closer look at the different theories that explain how science and Genesis 1 and 2 can be reconciled. Young Earth creationism interprets Genesis 1 and 2 as a literal and historical account of how God made the universe. So their main challenge is to reconcile how the scientific data that supports the age of the earth as billions of years old can fit with the historical narrative presented in Genesis 1 and 2, where God created everything in 6 days. The first theory they use is called the flood theory. They argue that the earth is thousands of years old based on the genealogies listed in the Bible. So they argue that any fossils and sedimentary layers that we see today is not the result of billions of years of evolution, but the result of a worldwide flood that killed all the animals at once as recorded in the Bible. The main objection with this view is that it is difficult to put forth a scientific theory that explains a supernatural event like the flood. How can we know through the scientific method that all of geology as we see today is a result of a supernatural event if we can't replicate the conditions of that event or test this hypothesis through the scientific method? At what point is science correct in its methodology or wrong? And where do we draw the line? The second theory used by young Earth creationism is called the ideal time theory. This theory says that although the earth appears billions of years old, it did not take God billions of years to create this world. For example, when God created Adam, he did not create him as an infant. Instead, Adam was created as an adult instantaneously. If God created plants and animals within the same 6-day period he created Adam and Eve, then he must have created these animals and plants in its full mature state so that they could serve as a food source for Adam and Eve. Also, in order to support plant and animal life, the soil must be full of nutrients, which actually takes multiple years for this to occur. So God must have created the Garden of Eden in a fully mature state, even though it did not take years for it to develop that way. In the same way, when God created the earth in 6 literal days, he created it as a mature earth, which appears to be billions of years old. Regarding radioactive elements that are used to date the age of fossils, this theory argues that God could have created radioactive elements to appear as if it has been aging for a long time, when in fact they did not have time to decay at all. So, this theory says that all the scientific data that we see today that supports an old earth can be explained away by saying that God created everything to appear old, when in reality it is not. The main objection with this view is that it makes God seem like a deceiver. Christians affirm that God cannot lie, but to argue that God created the earth to appear a certain age, when in reality it is not that age, seems to imply that God is not being honest with us. Why would God do something that would lead humans to a wrong conclusion? Let's move on to Old Earth creationism. Old Earth creationism believes that a strictly literal approach to Genesis 1 and 2 is not the correct way to read these chapters. Old Earth creationism views the scientific methods and data that we have today to be reasonably accurate and therefore accepts that the earth and universe are billions of years old. The first theory that they use to reconcile the scientific data with Genesis 1 and 2 is called the gap theory. This view says that between Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 and Genesis chapter 1 verse 2, that there's a gap of millions of years between God's first creation and God's second creation. During the first creation is when the death of animals and plants happened after the fall of Satan. After millions of years of death, the earth became formless and void. Then from this point, God repopulates the earth with animals and plants again, but this time with humans. So dinosaurs, fossils, and geological formations that we see today are a result of the destruction that occurred to the first creation. This view also interprets the days of Genesis 1 and 2 as literal days, since it refers to the second creation or the repopulation of the earth. The main objection with this view is that it cannot explain the source of light for the first creation. Genesis chapter 1 verse 3 states that God created light during the second creation. So how did animals and plants live without light during the first creation? Also, there seems to be little textual evidence to conclude that there's a gap of millions of years between verses 1 and 2. The second theory Old Earth creationists use is called the age-day theory. This view argues that the Hebrew word for day, or yom, does not refer to a 24-hour day, but can also refer to a very long period. So the 6 days of creation can refer to 6 very long periods. The main objection with this view is that the sequence of events described in Genesis Genesis chapter 1 does not match the same sequence of events that we know from astronomy and geology. Genesis chapter 1 says that vegetation appeared on the third day and animals on the fifth day, while geology says that invertebrate animals were in the ocean long before vegetation appeared on land. Genesis chapter 1 says that God created the stars on the fourth day after the earth was already in existence. But this contradicts what astronomy teaches, which says that the stars are older than the earth. The final theory that old earth creationists use is called the Pictorial Day Theory. This view says that Genesis chapter 1 is simply a list of pictures or symbols that provides a structure for the theological purpose of creation rather than a chronological timeline of creation. So the point of Genesis chapter 1 is that God is building the universe as his temple for him to live with his people. This is why Exodus chapter 39 to 40 describes the 7-day construction of the tabernacle, while 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 38 describes the 7-year construction of the temple, both alluding back to the 7-day creation account. The main objection with this view is that Jewish customs are typically built on historical narratives, such as the Passover. The Jewish custom of the Sabbath is based on the creation account, where God rested on the 7th day after his work to set a pattern for his people to follow. If Jewish customs are built on historical narratives, then this seems to imply that the creation account should be read as a historical narrative and not just seen as a list of pictures. Also, if there is no historical relevance to the details listed in Genesis chapter 1 and 2, then at what point does the symbols end and the historical narrative begin? Is there a historical Adam, or is he simply a picture or symbol? Is there a historical flood, or is that simply a picture or symbol? So we have seen that there are objections for both young and old earth creationists. For young earth creationists, the question is this: did Moses intend Genesis chapter 1 and 2 to be a scientific document? If so, then how can Moses accurately summarize the history of the world in 11 chapters? What about Europe and Asia's history? Are you reading more into the text than Moses intended? For old earth creationists, the question is this: evolution requires death, but death does not exist until Genesis 3 when sin entered the world. How could there be millions of years of death before the existence of sin? Also, can a supernatural event, namely creation, be explained through the scientific method? Interestingly, young earth creationists attribute their scientific evidence to a supernatural event, while old earth creationists try to explain a supernatural event with scientific data. It seems that both sides are speaking over each other and missing the main point. The point of Genesis chapter 1 and 2 is not to explain the age of the earth or the process of creation. The point is to show us that God created everything for his purpose, and that we can be confident that God is the creator of all things, even if we might not know the exact process of how he created all things. If you want to learn more about this topic, I'll leave a link to a recommended book below in the description box. In case you missed a previous video that compared young earth and old earth creationism, I'll leave a link for you here to watch. Until next time, see you!